Right now, your body is doing something it's done about 20,000 times today, and chances are you haven't noticed once. Breathing. It seems boring, automatic, the same expansion and contraction of the lungs all day. But here's an interesting thing about it. Thousands of years ago, on opposite sides of the planet, cultures that had never met, never traded, never even knew the other existed, all independently arrived at the exact same conclusion that your breath is not just keeping you alive, it's rather keeping you in control, or perhaps out of it. And modern neuroscience just figured out why they were right. Let's dig in. In ancient India, there's a text called the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra. It's structured as a conversation. Parvati turns to Shiva and asks, what is the nature of reality? And how can one actually experience it? And Shiva doesn't answer with more philosophy. He answers with 112 techniques, specific instructions, a practical manual for the mind. Not theory, method. And where does he begin? The very first four techniques? Breath. Not ritual, not prayer, not philosophy. Breath. Why would the most comprehensive meditation manual ever written start here? Why breath out of everything? The text describes watching the exact moment where your inhale turns into your exhale, that tiny pause between them, and it says that gap is a doorway to stillness. Yogis gave these three movements names: Purak, the inhale, Rechak, the exhale, and Kumbhak, the hold. That pause, the stillness between breaths, is what Shiva told Parvati is the doorway. We'll come back to why that gap matters, but first, India wasn't alone. 3,000 miles east, Taoist monks in China developed a practice they called embryonic breathing. Breathing so slow and so deep, it mimicked how a baby breathes in the womb. They called it turtle breathing because turtles, the longest lived animals they knew, breathed from their belly, not their chest. And in Greece, the Stoics built their entire emotional philosophy around a concept called pneuma, which literally means breath or spirit, same word. For Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, controlling your breath wasn't a wellness tip, it was the foundation of controlling your response to the world. Three civilizations, no shared language, no trade routes connecting them yet. And all three said if you want to master your emotions, start with the air going in and out of your body. That's either a spectacular coincidence or they all stumbled onto the same piece of biological hardware. Well, they did, and it has a name. It is the vagus nerve. Vagus comes from the Latin for wandering, and it earns that name. It's the longest nerve in your body, starting at your brainstem, running down through your throat, wrapping around your heart, threading through your lungs, and all the way down to your gut. Think of it like the main motorway of your nervous system, the one running the rest and recover mode, the systems that's supposed to balance out your fight or flight response. Yogis called it the Sushumna Nadi, the central channel, the axis through which life energy prana flows upward toward awakening. And when you map it against the vagus nerve, the overlap is hard to ignore. Same path, same direction, drawn by people who lived 5,000 years apart and never compared the notes. And what the yogis called Ida and Pingala, the two channels spiraling around the Sushumna, those map to the two branches of your autonomic nervous system. Pingala is your alarm system, sympathetic, fight, flight, alert. Ida is your off switch, parasympathetic, rest, recover, calm. It's as if they were observing the same biological machine, but from different angles. And here's the key insight: your brain has two modes. The sympathetic system floods you with adrenaline and cortisol when you are in danger, and the parasympathetic system brings you back down. The problem is that in modern life, the danger switch is left on for most of your day. Your boss sends a passive aggressive email, or you saw a notification on social media, and your body reacts like it just spotted a predator. Traffic, deadlines, doom scrolling. Your fight or flight fires all day, every day, for threats that don't actually need you to fight or flee. And here's what the ancient cultures figured out without ever seeing a brain scan: your breath is the only body function that runs on autopilot and can also be taken over manually. Think about it like this: every other system in your body is locked. Your heartbeat, automatic; digestion, automatic. You can't decide to beat your heart faster right now, but you can decide to breathe differently. right now, anytime you want. So, what happens when you do? When you slow your exhale longer than your inhale, your diaphragm stretches. That stretch physically presses on the vagus nerve, like pressing a button. The vagus nerve fires, it releases a chemical called acetylcholine. Your heart rate drops, your blood pressure falls, your cortisol levels go down, you shift from stressed to calm in about 90 seconds. That's not meditation mysticism, that's a mechanical process. You are literally pressing your physical nerve with a physical muscle, and it sends a signal that changes your emotional state. The ancients didn't have the words for any of that, but they had 5,000 years of paying attention, and they mapped the same mechanism with terrifying precision. So, what exactly did they prescribe? Let's look at three techniques, one from each tradition. The modern research has actually gone and tested. Technique 1, bhramari pranayama. The name means humming bee breath. You inhale deeply, then you exhale while making a low humming sound, like a bee. Fingers gently closing your ears and eyes. It sounds strange, it looks even stranger. But in 2002, researchers Weitzberg and Lundberg discovered something remarkable. Humming increases nitric oxide production in your nasal sinuses by 15 times compared to silent breathing. 15 times. Nitric oxide opens blood vessels, boosts oxygenation, reduces inflammation. But there's a second thing happening. The vibration of humming physically stimulates the vagus nerve through the throat and skull. Studies show that Brahmari reduces anxiety more than the slow breathing alone. The humming adds something measurable on top. Think about that for a second. Yogis were doing this in 3000 BC and had no idea why it worked. Turns out they had stumbled onto something a lab confirmed 2000 years later. Technique 2, the pause, or in yogic terms, kumbhak, the gap between your exhale and your next inhale. Remember what Shiva told Parvati at the beginning. He said the turning point, the gap between breaths, is a doorway to stillness. This is the crucial realization. That pause is when your body recalibrates. It's like the moment between notes in music, the silence that gives everything else its shape. By staying in that pause, even for just a breath or two longer, you are giving your nervous system the precise window it needs to shift gears. By staying in that pause, even for just a breath or two longer, you are giving your nervous system more time in its reset window. Ancients called this touching the energy field center. Modern physiology calls it the respiratory cardiac coupling pause. Different names for the same split second. The moment your nervous system quietly resets. Technique 3, Taoist turtle breathing. This one is simple. Normal breathing, 12 to 20 breaths per minute. The Taoist goal, 5 or 6. Modern research confirms this is the sweet spot. Studies show the vagus nerve hits the optimal activation at around 5.5 to 6 breaths per minute. That's roughly a 5-second inhale and a 5-second exhale. The Taoists arrived at the number through centuries of quiet observation. Heart rate variability researchers arrived at it through lab equipment and sensors. Nobody told either of them what number to look for. They both found 6. For most of human history, slow, deliberate breathing was just part of life. You sat around a fire, you chanted, you prayed, you walked for hours, and all of those activities naturally pulled your breath rate down into that 5 to 6 breaths per minute window. Nobody was thinking about the vagus nerve, it just happened. Then we invented the office chair, the smartphone, the 24-hour news cycle, and suddenly the average person breathes 15 to 20 times per minute. Shallow, chest only. The diaphragm barely moves. The vagus nerve never gets pressed. The reset never triggers. We didn't lose the hardware. The vagus nerve is still there. The diaphragm still works. The gap between your breaths still exists. We just stopped using the switch. But here's what I find remarkable. Every one of those ancient cultures, independently, without any coordination, tried to leave us the instructions. They wrote it down, they passed it on. They call it different things, but they were all pointing at the same switch. Different traditions, one nerve. One mechanical trick your body has been capable of this entire time. The Indian yogis found it through vibration, the Taoists found it through slowness, and the Stoics found it through discipline. And 2000 years later, a lab technician with an EKG confirmed what they already knew. Your breath is not just keeping you alive, it's the only backdoor into a nervous system that you think you can't control. And the door has been unlocked the whole time. If you want to see what else the ancients figured out before modern science caught up, subscribe. We are just getting started.